Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to give a bit of context, really, to all the things that you're doing and all the things that you've achieved, because I didn't want this moment to pass without recognizing that you've done this for 90 years. And what you've been doing has something that, in parallel with what we've been trying to achieve, to sort of make this whole movement an international exercise. I wanted you to recognize that there are people like you now all over the world. Just when we started Walk 21 in partnership with Ben, with Living Streets, you know, we were there at the beginning. This was when Ben had his cupboard and I had a box. It was just the two of us in the UK with this responsibility. And we felt that the entire agenda was trying to remind people to get out of cars. It felt like that was so going to be taking such amount of effort. How do we do that? And to what extent is the agenda relevant to all these other political currencies that we had to learn and adapt to? And we spent an awful lot of time, certainly the last 10, 15 years, I would say we were largely focused in what often people call the global north, where reminding people, city after city, country after country, that walking isn't such a bad thing has been a huge agenda. And I know that you're focused on that. But what we've also, just in the last 5 years, heard from country after country and from national institutions and international ones, is that walking very often, for the majority of people, there is little policy and little infrastructure all over the world, especially for the people where they haven't got a choice. And so actually, in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, in what is sometimes called the global south, where we have cities where we have 80 to 90% of people walking, there's often absolutely nothing. And what they look for is often it's an individual who approaches us or might approach us at one of these events and says, what should we be asking for? And what's very interesting to us is the fact that clearly this isn't just about asking for more walking, but often it's about thinking about just as a justification, just to make things better for everybody, the fact that everybody is walking already. And of course they are walking here in Manchester as they are in the UK, as they are around the world. And what we've had to package in many ways is recognising back to the core message. And I wanted to make sure that in all the detail, in all the leaflets and conversations that you've heard today, I just wanted to share with you our 1, 2, 3 that we say to people all over the world who are just getting started, and really just remember what this is all about. The first one is this right to walk. I've got a picture here of a red carpet, and it was actually in Copenhagen with Jan Gehl that he got somebody at our conference to roll out a red carpet right down the middle of the street that linked up the main railway station with our conference centre. And it was there for a week. The first 3 days, nobody tread on it because they thought someone important is coming. By the end of the week, and we made enough fuss about it, they realised that actually they were the important people. And in fact, time and time again now, we take red carpet with us all over the world, and we call it VIP Day, very important pedestrian. So take a piece of red carpet with you, whatever carpet it needs to be, whatever colour, and remember this right to walk. We've looked at trying to invest it in the United Nations. It's too complicated. We told it would take at least 10 years. We don't need the United Nations behind it to actually endorse it. It is a right that we should all be able to walk. And so take that carpet with you and put it down in front of the next politician or whoever it is that you're trying to influence. We heard from Shane today the questions that you've had about as well, about the right also to enjoy it. Absolutely fundamental about joy. We shouldn't be ashamed of asking for joy in our cities. And I'm really pleased that even cities like Hong Kong, where you might arguably think, oh, this is the mode share percentage we want, 90% of people walk or take public transport in Hong Kong. And yet they've said that it's the worst part of their day. It is horrible. And they realise it's just not good enough to have the mode share. So don't just ask for as many people to remember to walk as possible. You've got to make it nice. And they're willing to spend more than £1 million on a strategy to work out what nice means. Come back to Shane's idea about that. I think it's really fascinating, the fact that most people, all over the world, the only thing they measure for pedestrians is crashes. That's it. So funnily enough, and even that, in the decade of road safety, we were at the global ministers meeting that got referred to a couple of weeks ago. Even there, in the global road safety meeting, in the last 5 years, with the decade of road safety focused on trying to reduce crashes, it's gone up by 30% globally. 30% increase. So it's not working and something has to change. And it was the first time at that meeting 2 weeks ago where they said walking has to be part of the solution. It's not part of the problem. It was a game changer. And the third thing we have to ask for everywhere is the right to keep doing it. There's only one study, and it was done by the Asia Development Bank, interestingly, who asked people that if they didn't improve the footpaths or the walking experience at the moment in Asian cities, what would they do? And 81% said they're going to motorize. They're going to change behavior. They're going to give it up as soon as they can afford to. That question, I would love to ask that question across the UK. We should ask it in Manchester. We should ask it in every city. The point being about putting a value on mode retention, not just about shift, getting people out of their cars. All the people who walk at the moment, if we don't look after them, it's going to be a massive issue globally. We understand we've got an international charter. There is a framework here that's been signed by more than 6,000 politicians. We have never put this under the nose, or no advocate has put it under the nose of any politician anywhere in the world who has said, I don't want that. They've all signed it. And the moment they've signed it, they've recognised that there's an agenda, and on we go. We're going to be launching Walkable Cities later this year, and I want to make sure that the UK has dozens and dozens of cities that are validated so that it's not just Vienna and Melbourne who are always the most livable places in the world. What hope is there for all of our places? We have to recognise the effort and the things that you're asking for, and I hope that you'll be part of us with that. And certainly when we think about strategies nationally, I think what's happened here in the UK, and we haven't worked in the UK for about 10 years, but the work that you've done to try and push that agenda, I think is okay. But actually, Germany, the Netherlands, Iceland, they're all working on national strategies right now. We're supporting Ethiopia, Zambia, Senegal, Uganda, all writing national strategies for walking. And you know what? A lot of them are more ambitious than the UK. You know, people are asking, I was with somebody yesterday in India. They've written into the law that there will be 60% of the transport budget in some of their cities being spent on walking because they've got 80% people walking. So they asked for 60%. In Nairobi, 20% of the transport budget has to be spent on walking. They've got 80% of people walking. They think 20% is not enough. I think we should be up in our game here, and I hope that you will take examples from these international things. What it all comes down to, and someone put this slide up in our conference in Rotterdam from Norway, and they said too often our streets make us scream. You know, we got a picture here of somebody screaming and they say, it's seriously stressful out there. Or the other picture of a girl here is someone saying, it's boring. Somewhere between stressful and boring, on the opposite side, isn't what we want something that is a picture of a baby there smiling and feeling stimulated. We want something stimulating, and the other picture is of someone relaxing. So something between, they just use this as a framework to talk to politicians, to talk to people and saying, look, we don't want to scream, we don't want to be bored, we want to be stimulated, and we want to relax. It's really simple, and these messages translate around the world. The safe, easy, nice, if we ever have to put it into a politician, we just say safe, easy, nice. If we say that to a community, surely something safe, easy, welcoming for everybody is all we actually want. How to map that is simple. We're doing it in Colombia, we're doing it in Nigeria. Why don't we do it and ask everybody here, give everyone the tool to map every place where it's good and every place where it's bad. We could do that and create a map of the whole of the UK. Would be fantastic, like they're doing in Colombia and have just done in the Netherlands. But I think, and this is my last but one slide, the challenge ultimately, and we're told this all over the world, and I just created this yesterday, is the fact that unfortunately people think that we have this dilemma that walking sometimes feels as though it's the poor, it's for poor people. And all the way around the world, people say, well, these aren't the people that vote, or they aren't the people that matter, unfortunately. And yet we have this dilemma of people who promenade. You know, I've got a picture of heels here, the Lambertine shoes. Somehow or other, there comes an arc where it's only the beautiful people that seem to walk. What happened about that bit in between? And politically, I think people find very challenged about how we invest in places that are going to be equal for everybody. And the other two challenges that we get promoted all the time is the fact that, unfortunately, we forget about that moment that was wonderful when we learned to walk, as we heard earlier. And it's only once we forget how to walk that actually we forgot that bit in the middle that we should have been asking for it. And what they say to us is, well, the cyclists have got organised, they're already asking for us, and so don't be surprised that they've got all the money already for active travel. Cyclists are our friends, absolutely, but they're not our closest friends. Our best friends should be public transport. Walking in public transport is the way to change cities, and we have to get that package right, and we have to ask for really big, serious sums of money as they're happening in many parts of the world now. So, look, I didn't want this moment to pass without recognising the fact that there are now more than 50 organisations like Living Streets around the world in 50 different countries. We've got a network of more than 5,000 people like you who are engaged in this subject, and they look to Living Streets very often because of the materials you make, the visions you have, the connections you've made, and the things that you've achieved. So I wanted to say a particular happy birthday. 90 years. It's extraordinary what you've done. It's what you've done, though, in the last 20 years especially, has just been so significant, but it's been significantly globally. And I didn't want this moment to pass without recognising Joe, if you wouldn't mind coming up, Terence, and actually I think it's really good to have Susan. Please come up, and Jane. I'm inviting you up. I like the equality. We're not just having men on this stage. And to give you this Giacometti-inspired award, and Ben, you can all come up. 90 years. And if you didn't know, that statue is still the most expensive piece of art that's ever been sold. And it was a picture of someone walking. It's a sculpture of someone walking.
Not this particular one.
Well, this is the second most important. It's just as valuable, believe me. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.